The cabin air in business class was crisp, cool, laced with the scent of citrus disinfectant and freshly ground coffee. The hum of the engines provided a comforting white noise, the kind that made people feel important just for sitting in these oversized leather seats. Harold Weston, chief of the NYPD, adjusted his tie as he took seat 3C. It wasn't about comfort. It was about presence. Ever since the city riots, people recognized him. Not everyone liked him. Some thought he used too much force. Others thought he didn't use enough. But today, he wasn't a badge. He was just a man flying to London to meet his wife, Elena, the only person who didn't flinch when she looked him in the eye. He carefully folded his jacket and placed it on the empty seat beside him. The seat wasn't assigned, and the flight wasn't full. Still, his instinct told him, something was coming. "Sir." The voice was clipped, British, and a little too sharp. He turned. A flight attendant, blonde bun pulled so tight it looked like it hurt, was standing over him, tray tucked under one arm. "That seat is not yours," she said. Her name tag read Claire. Her tone read trouble. Harold looked up, calm. "It's unoccupied. I'll move the jacket if someone takes it. It doesn't matter if it's unoccupied. You don't put your things there. Business class is for paying guests, not." She paused. Just long enough. Not what, Harold wondered. Not cops. Not black men. He met her eyes, stone cold. "Excuse me." Claire didn't blink. "Please remove your jacket, sir, or I'll have to escalate this." He tilted his head. "Escalate it?" "I'll inform the captain," she said firmly, "and have you removed if necessary." That's when it happened. A voice. Calm, smooth, but with the unmistakable weight of authority. From seat 1A. "Claire," the woman said, not raising her voice. "Do you even know who that man is?" Claire turned, caught off guard. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I'm just following." "That man," the woman said, rising to her feet, her stilettos clicking against the carpet, "is my husband." Harold looked toward the front. And there she was, Elena Weston. Impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, her dark curls pulled back, her diamond earrings small but defiant. "And I," she said, her voice like glass, "own this airline." Claire's face went pale. Harold sat back slowly in his seat. Not with arrogance. With the kind of dignity that comes after too many years of being second-guessed, side-eyed, and shoved aside. The cabin went quiet. Somewhere in the back, someone put their phone down. This was no longer just turbulence in the air. It was the start of something much, much bigger. Claire stood frozen, like a glitch in time. Her hands, moments ago so confident, now hovered midair, unsure whether to reach for her tablet or simply vanish. Passengers whispered. A businessman leaned into the aisle for a better view. Even the woman in 2B, who hadn't looked up from her tablet since boarding, now pulled her AirPods out. "Mrs. Weston," Claire began, her voice cracking with a practiced smile. "I didn't recognize." "That's clear," Elena interrupted, walking slowly toward her. "You saw a man. A black man. Alone. And you assumed he didn't belong here." "I never." "You did. And you know you did." Harold didn't move. His hands were folded on his lap, gaze steady. He'd been through this before. The overcorrection. The stammering apologies. The people who feared consequences more than they feared being wrong. Elena turned to him. "You okay?" He nodded. "I've been worse." She didn't smile. She looked at Claire. "My husband flew in from a week of dealing with a triple homicide and a press scandal. He's had 2 hours of sleep and a bullet fragment still lodged near his spine. And your first instinct was to threaten him with security over a folded jacket." Claire tried to recover. I was following protocol. No. You were following bias. Silence. But then, tension snapped. Ma'am, Claire said, standing a little straighter, trying to salvage the scene, I assure you, this isn't personal. Wrong words. Very wrong. Everything is personal, Elena said coldly. Especially when it comes to power. The head purser, a middle-aged man named Jorge with years in the sky behind his eyes, approached cautiously. Mrs. Weston, he said gently. Perhaps we should speak in private. Why? Elena replied. So Claire can pretend this didn't happen while offering him a complimentary drink and a hollow apology. Harold finally stood. He was tall, taller than anyone in the cabin realized while he was seated. His presence shifted the atmosphere. Elena, he said. It's okay. She turned to him. No, it's not. I know. But I'm not going to let someone ruin our flight before takeoff. His eyes drifted to Claire. Not worth it. He picked up his jacket. Folded it. Placed it across his lap. No anger. Just grace sharpened by a lifetime of swallowing fire. Claire looked like she wanted the earth to open beneath her. Jorge cleared his throat. We'll address this properly after takeoff. Elena raised an eyebrow. You will. As she returned to her seat, the cabin exhaled. Conversation slowly resumed. A flight attendant brought Harold water with trembling hands. But in row 1A, Elena opened her phone. And started typing. The glow from Elena's phone lit up her sharp features as her thumbs danced across the screen. Calm. Precise. Dangerous. 2. Board of Directors. Subject, in-flight incident, immediate action required. I'm currently en route to London on flight 487. There was a discriminatory confrontation in the business cabin involving one of our senior flight attendants and my husband, Harold Weston, NYPD chief and a loyal customer. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a failure in training, empathy, and accountability. We've poured millions into PR campaigns about diversity and inclusion. That's branding. This was reality. I'm initiating a formal review. If Claire is still in uniform by the time we land, someone else won't be. She hit send. Across the aisle, Harold took a sip of water and gave her a side glance. Firing someone mid-flight? That's a little ruthless. Elena didn't look up. She picked the wrong man to humiliate, and the wrong woman to do it in front of. He chuckled. You always did have a flair for justice. I married into law enforcement. Some of it rubbed off. She slid her phone away and reclined slightly, eyes on the ceiling. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them wasn't cold, it was lived in, like the quiet between two people who've weathered storms and come out forged, not broken. Then Harold asked, quieter this time, you really think she meant it that way? Elena tilted her head toward him. Would she have told a white banker in $1,000 suit to move his jacket? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. From a few rows back, Claire stood in the galley, staring blankly into space. Her hands trembled as she clutched a stack of cocktail napkins she wasn't folding, just holding, like a life raft. Jorge approached her, voice hushed. You okay? No, she said. I didn't know she was the owner. You shouldn't have to know someone's last name to treat them with respect. Claire's jaw flexed. I didn't mean anything by it. Intent doesn't matter, he said quietly. Impact does. She blinked fast. Am I getting fired? Jorge didn't answer. But the silence was answer enough. Back in seat 3C, Harold pulled out a tablet from his carry-on. It lit up with news feeds, headlines, and police updates. But instead of reading, he just stared at the lock screen photo, a shot of him and Elena, standing in front of City Hall, his arm wrapped around her waist, both of them in mid-laughter. You're quiet, Elena said. Thinking. About her? No, he looked at her. About us. She gave a small smile. Still worth flying across the ocean for. He smiled back. Every damn time. But as their eyes locked, neither of them noticed the passenger in seat 5A. A man with salt and pepper hair and a laptop full of confidential files. A man watching the whole scene play out with interest. And a plan. Seat 5A wasn't particularly remarkable. Just another window seat with a slightly scuffed tray table and a view of the clouds that looked like ancient mountains. But the man sitting in it? He hadn't blinked in over a minute. He watched Elena Weston with the trained stillness of someone used to observing power from the shadows. His name, or at least the one on the manifest, was Martin Hale. But the badge in his carry-on said something different. A three-letter agency. One that didn't need to knock. His laptop screen glowed faintly behind his seatback tray, half obscured by the cracked casing of a leather folio. On it was a dossier. Subject, Harold Emmanuel Weston. Status, active. Flag, priority. He scrolled through images. Protests. Press conferences. Internal reports. Redacted paragraphs and lines that didn't make it through FOIA requests. He paused on a headline. Top cop under scrutiny after leak of surveillance program. Martin leaned back. Interesting couple. The airline's owner. And the man who once allegedly authorized facial recognition at political rallies without warrants. He wondered if Elena knew. Fully knew. He tapped a key. Another folder opened. This one labeled, Weston/London/contact, Delaney. Inside, a timestamp. A planned meeting. A single word. Intercept. Martin sipped from his water bottle and let his eyes wander back to the front of the plane. Elena and Harold were laughing again. That kind of intimate, low laugh that told him they'd been through hell together. But even hell didn't clear a federal file. At the front of the cabin, Claire was still rattled. She'd tried to keep busy, refreshing drinks, checking overhead bins, but her movements were robotic. Jorge pulled her aside once more. You're scheduled for another London turnaround tomorrow. Want me to pull you off? I can handle it. No one's questioning your spine, Claire. Just your judgment. She flinched. He lowered his voice. You've been good for years. Don't let one moment ruin your whole career. I didn't mean anything, she started again. I know. That's not the point. Back in 3C, Harold finally opened his tablet again. But this time, it wasn't news he pulled up. It was an encrypted message. Sender, unknown. Subject, London, Trust N01. Message, they're already watching you. Even here. He stared at the screen. How did they know where he was? He looked around the cabin. Someone had eyes on him. Not the press. Not the airline. Something darker. He reached into his coat. His badge wasn't the only thing tucked in there. 2 rows behind, Martin Hale watched as Harold subtly adjusted his jacket. He didn't know what Harold was hiding. But he knew one thing. This flight. It wasn't about a jacket. It was about control. And before they landed, someone was going to lose it. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft amber glow. A signal, dinner service would begin soon. A facade of peace at 30,000 feet. But Harold wasn't hungry. He tapped the message on his tablet again. No reply. Just that one sentence. They're already watching you. Even here. He'd seen enough in his time to know when a threat wasn't idle. The encryption level on the message was military grade. Not civilian. Not police. Agency. He looked up slowly, scanning the cabin. Businessmen, influencers, diplomats. No one suspicious. Yet one face, 5A, lingered just a bit too long when their eyes met. Harold didn't react. Didn't show a flicker of alarm. He simply reached for his glass and sipped, heart rate steady, just like the tactical breathing he'd mastered years ago. In 1A, Elena felt it too. A subtle shift. The air between her and her husband had changed. They'd spent enough years together, and through enough political fires, to sense when danger was unspoken. She leaned slightly into the aisle and glanced back. Harold didn't meet her eyes. She knew that look. He was protecting her. Again. She picked up her phone and opened a secure app disguised as a digital magazine. Under the travel tips and resort reviews were encrypted communications, pinged through a private satellite her company had quietly invested in for operational privacy. A red dot pulsed softly on the screen. Unusual surveillance detected aboard Flight 487. Location, Seat 5A. Her lips tightened. The system flagged Martin Hale before Harold had even noticed him. She tapped on the profile and frowned. Martin Hale. Former CIA analyst. Expunged in 2018. Reinstated 2022. Covert Ops. Black File Access, Level Theta. "What the hell are you doing on my plane?" she whispered. Meanwhile, Martin noticed something strange. His laptop's camera light blinked. Once. He hadn't turned it on. He closed the lid instantly. Too late. He was being watched too. Someone else was in play. Back in the galley, Claire stood over the meal cart, rattled but composed. She needed something, anything, to feel normal again. She reached for a tray and pulled it out. But instead of a meal, she found a file folder. Thin. Sealed. Labeled in red. Weston, eyes only. She stared at it. What the? Before she could open it, Jorge appeared beside her. Too suddenly. He took the folder with quiet authority. "That's not yours," he said. Claire didn't argue. Just stepped back. But something in Jorge's eyes made her pause. It was the first time she saw fear in him. Harold looked at his watch. London was still 6 hours away. Too long to wait. Too close to act. He tapped Elena's seat with his foot, a quiet signal. She turned halfway and nodded. That was all it took. They were officially back in it. Whatever it was this time. Somewhere over the North Atlantic, turbulence hit, sudden, sharp. The kind that made drinks slosh and seatbelts snap taut. But it wasn't the weather. At least, not the kind you could measure with radar. In 1A, Elena gripped the armrest, but her mind was racing faster than the plane. Why is Martin Hale on my flight? Why now? And why the hell is my head purser carrying classified intel meant for my husband? She slid her phone open again, tapped a hidden function. It activated her onboard security protocol, a discreet but advanced internal system used only by execs. Cameras. Mic taps. Live feed to her screen. She scrolled to the galley cam. There he was. Jorge. He'd waited until Claire left, then slid the folder into a hidden compartment near the ice drawer. Not trash. Not hidden to destroy, hidden to retrieve later. Elena's pulse spiked. She turned to the aisle. "Excuse me," she said, unbuckling. Harold caught her wrist. "Where are you going?" "To clean up a mess I didn't make," she said through gritted teeth. Elena. But she was already walking, heels silent on the carpet, every step calculated. Back in 5A, Martin Hale wasn't watching her. He was watching his device, a small, unmarked tablet with biometric lock and a single secure channel. And on that channel, a message appeared. Asset compromised. Retrieve file. Terminate if exposed. He exhaled slowly. The job had just changed. His eyes went to Jorge. He smiled. Not because he was glad. Because now, it was fun. In the galley, Elena stepped inside like a woman who owned more than an airline, like she owned the air itself. Jorge looked up and froze. "Mrs. Weston, I..." "Don't lie," she said calmly. He shut his mouth. She pointed to the ice drawer. "Open it." He didn't move. Harold appeared behind her. No words. Just presence. Just the weight of a man who'd cleared buildings in full gear and kicked down doors for less than what Jorge just did. Jorge opened the drawer. The folder was gone. Elena's jaw clenched. "Where is it?" Jorge looked her dead in the eyes. And smiled. "The less you know," he said, "the safer you'll be." Harold stepped forward, grabbed Jorge by the collar and slammed him gently, but decisively, against the wall of the galley. "I've been shot twice this year," Harold growled. "I'm not really in the mood for riddles, friend." Then came the ding. A soft bloop over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen," the pilot said. "We've been asked to begin an unscheduled descent into Shannon Airport, Ireland. Please remain seated." Harold blinked. "They're grounding us." "Why?" Elena whispered. Then her phone vibrated. A new message, no sender. "Control lost. They're making their move. Keep the file safe." Harold turned to Jorge. "You brought something on this plane," he said. "Something someone would ground an international flight for." Jorge's smile twisted. "It was never about the file." Harold's voice went cold. "Then what was it about?" Jorge looked him dead in the eye. "You." The engines shifted pitch. Not the usual soft descent, this was sharper, more urgent. Passengers were murmuring, looking out windows, whispering across aisles. Seatbelts clicked. Drinks went untouched. In the galley, Harold had Jorge pinned, one arm pressed against his throat, the other clenched, holding back instincts he'd honed in darker corners of the world. "You're going to tell me everything," he said. But Jorge just smiled. Elena, meanwhile, was no longer silent. She was calculating every exit, every system on the plane. She'd once overseen the redesign of this aircraft's onboard comms for security optimization. Right now, that meant she could isolate the cockpit from the cabin. She pulled her phone. Accessed the back end. Entered her override code. Access granted, Elena Weston, CEO override. She spoke quietly. "Control, reroute cockpit channel to my terminal. Lock external calls." Across the plane, systems responded like loyal dogs. Harold noticed. "What are you doing?" "Making sure this plane doesn't land until we're ready." In 5A, Martin Hale's screen blinked. Command blocked. Signal jammed. Control override detected. He swore under his breath. Elena Weston just took his leash off the pilot. He stood slowly, cracking his neck. His hand slipped beneath his jacket. Underneath, taped inside, a compact suppressed weapon. No longer a shadow. Now he was a blade. Claire, oblivious to the full scale of what was unfolding, reached for the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please." Martin grabbed it from her hand. She blinked. "Excuse me, sir, you can't." He showed her the gun. She went silent. "Everyone stays seated," he said, voice calm but coated in steel. "Until I find what I'm looking for." He turned, eyes scanning rows. Not for a file. For a man. Back in the galley, Jorge wheezed as Harold finally stepped back. "You're ex-military," Jorge muttered. "That's obvious. But you have no idea how deep you're in." Harold narrowed his eyes. Try me. Everything you exposed in New York. Facial rec ghost surveillance. All of it, someone wanted you to leak it. Harold frowned. That doesn't make sense. They set you up, Harold. The leak was a trap. So they could track who you'd talk to. Who you'd protect. Elena's face darkened. So I was the target too. Jorge shook his head. No. You were the prize. Before Harold could ask what he meant, Elena's screen pinged. Intruder armed, cabin aft. Surveillance feed, engaging. She tapped into the video. Martin. Gun drawn. Walking the aisle. Harold saw it and moved. Time to end this. Harold emerged into the cabin like a hammer, voice booming. Everyone down. Passengers screamed. Panic hit like a wave. Martin spotted him, eyes locked instantly. Chief Weston, he said coolly. We've been waiting a long time. Harold's voice was fire. Drop it. You don't understand. I understand you brought a weapon onto a commercial flight and pointed it at civilians. Martin tilted his head. I didn't come here to kill anyone. Then what the hell do you want? Martin lowered the gun slightly. To keep you alive. The cabin went silent again. Even Harold paused. What? Martin looked over his shoulder, toward the door of the plane, as if expecting something, or someone, worse than himself to arrive. You're the last piece on the board, Martin said. And they're landing this plane so someone else can take the shot. They? Martin nodded. Not the agency. Not the government. Something older. Something that's been building this web for years. You're lying, Elena said, stepping forward. Martin looked at her, and for the first time, there was no malice. Only exhaustion. I wish I was. The plane was low now, too low. The Irish coastline stretched like a scar across the edge of the horizon. Shannon Airport was 10 minutes out. In the cockpit, the pilot's voice was locked out, overridden by Elena's system. But outside the aircraft, a landing strip had been cleared. And near the tarmac, two black SUVs waited like vultures. In the cabin, Harold stood frozen, staring at Martin Hale, the so-called threat who just claimed to be his last line of defense. You've got 60 seconds, Harold said. Make it count. Martin nodded. They knew you'd resist the surveillance expansion. That's why they pushed you forward, made you their champion, their hero cop. Then leaked the story themselves. It wasn't about destroying you. It was about seeing who'd stand with you once you fell. Elena's eyes went wide. They used him as bait. Martin nodded. Every call you took, every protester you shielded, every journalist who reached out, they've been cataloging them. Creating a map. Harold's voice dropped. A purge list. And you, Elena, Martin said, turning toward her, you weren't just the CEO of an airline. You're one of the last people in the world with enough private satellite access to hide the right people. Move them. Protect them. She paled. That's why they want both of you gone. You, for shielding the network. Him, for being the spark. Martin looked out the window. They're not police. Not federal. They're contractors. Blacklist. Off books. Harold took it in. Then turned, walked past the rows of frozen, terrified passengers, and opened the emergency equipment panel. Inside, a service pistol. Concealed. Legally installed for Sky Marshal deployment. He tossed it to Martin. Cover the rear. If they board, don't hesitate. Martin caught the weapon and nodded. What's the plan? Harold looked at Elena. Survive the landing. 10 minutes later. Touchdown. The wheels screeched against Irish asphalt. The plane slowed hard. Emergency lights activated. Doors remained sealed. Then, the intercom crackled back to life. Jorge's voice. Calm. Measured. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. Security will now be boarding for a routine check. Please remain calm. Martin's eyes snapped to Harold. That's not the real security. They both drew weapons. Harold turned to the passengers. On the floor. Now. Claire helped. Her instincts finally shifted, from corporate politeness to survival. The front cabin door opened. 3 men stepped in. Black tactical gear. No badges. Expressionless. Elena hit the signal. Cabin lockdown, activated. The doors slammed shut behind them, sealed. You're not getting off this plane, Elena said coolly. One of the men stepped forward, rifle raised. You're Elena Weston. You know this isn't a negotiation. You're right, she said. It's not. A loud crack echoed through the cabin. Martin fired first. One shot, center mass. Harold tackled the second man into the galley, slamming him into a cabinet. A flash of bone, blood, and steel. The third aimed for Elena, and Claire, trembling, hurled a wine bottle straight into his face. It didn't drop him. But it bought a second. Elena dove behind a seat. Martin took the shot. Silence. 3 bodies. 1 cabin, still. 10 minutes later. Outside the plane. Irish police surrounded the aircraft. Elena's legal team, already moving. Her satellites uploaded footage from every second of the incident. The story was already breaking online. CEO and police chief prevent covert assassination attempt on international flight. CNN, BBC, Reuters. Simultaneously. Later that night. Private suite, Dublin. Harold sat in a robe, bruised but alive. Elena handed him a drink. You were right, he said quietly. This wasn't about the jacket. She smirked. No. But it started there. They both laughed. Softly. Tired. You think it's over, he asked. No, she said. But now they know we won't go quietly. He looked at her. You know they'll try again. She nodded. Then we'll be ready.